In our previous video, we detailed the history and performance of the U.S. Army's workhorse, the Willys MB Ford GPW light utility vehicle. Now it's time to place this remarkable machine in its proper historical context. Of equal importance to the Jeep's excellent service record is what it tells us about the design psychology of the Allied war effort and how that concept led to victory. Simply put, to understand the Jeep, how it came to be, as well as why it was designed and built the way it was, is to know how the Allies won the war. Looking closely at the Jeep, it is crude even by 1940 standards. It was built to withstand 6 weeks of hard use, after which time nuts and bolts would start to shake loose. The vehicle was then dropped off at the unit's ordnance battalion, where it was dismantled, worn parts refurbished, and any missing hardware replaced. It was sturdy enough that this 6-week maintenance cycle could be kept up indefinitely. It lacked many of the things that we take for granted in an automobile today. No automatic transmission, no radio, no air conditioning, no heater, no powered windshield wipers, no doors or side windows, and a roof that barely kept the worst of the rain off of its passengers. Its electrical system was equally primitive. The 6-volt system would start to drain power if the vehicle sat for more than a couple of days, which is why a manual starting hand crank was part of the Jeep's standard issue of equipment. The Jeep was the embodiment of the mantra, good enough for government work. Although that phrase has come to have a negative connotation in modern times, during the build-up to the Second World War it was, in fact, a statement of principle. To make something good enough for government work meant 3 things. Make it as simple as possible with the bare minimum of moving parts. Make it as sturdy as possible, and produce it in the highest numbers possible. Fewer parts per vehicle meant that more vehicles could be produced. Built-in sturdiness ensured that the vehicle would last the duration of the war with proper maintenance, and high production numbers meant that American industrial capacity could flood the battlefield with materiel, vastly outnumbering the enemy's forces. Let's take a look at this idea in action by making a quick comparison. In 1939, the German Wehrmacht adopted the Type 82 Kübelwagen, a light utility vehicle based on what we now know as the Volkswagen Beetle. In just about every aspect, this vehicle was superior to the American Jeep. It had a built-in heater. It had a convertible roof which completely shielded its occupants from the elements, as well as functional doors and side windows. It got better gas mileage, had better traction in the desert, and carried more cargo. The problem was, all of the additional time spent tinkering with fit, finish, and accessories meant that the Volkswagen Company only produced 50,000 of these vehicles during the wartime years. Meanwhile, Ford and Willys produced a combined total of 640,000 Jeeps. This meant that the Allied forces outgunned the Axis by a ratio of 12-1 in the ability to transport men, weapons, ammunition, and supplies to the battlefield and evacuate casualties. That quantitative edge literally overwhelmed any possible Axis defense to the liberation of the continent. This simple concept of good enough for government work, coupled with maximum effort from American industry, is something that visitors to the museum will see evident in almost every aspect of wartime production. From boots and rations to uniforms and vehicles, the Allied nations produced a withering volume of material which made eventual victory on the continent inevitable.